The Joe Rogan Experience.
Like the guns, like that was the thing, right? When they first said guns are not essential, right? Then they pulled back on that, and they said,
it was essential, and then they decided to stop it from being
Right.
essential because there's giant lines outside of gun stores,
Yeah.
and people were kind of tweaking, and then people complained about that, and then they stepped in and said it's not, and everybody said, fuck you, and then they go, okay, we're kidding, you can have your guns.
So let me tell you, because I directly experienced this last week. I bought a gun.
This is the
last week.
first time you've ever owned a gun.
No, I owned a gun back in the 80s. I used to target shoot with some guys I worked with up in Oakland. But I bought a gun, right, because all of this went down, and people were like, why'd you buy a gun? I said, because The Purge went from a movie to a documentary. I was like, I don't want to be the only one, you know. But the way I had to do it was you go online and you make an appointment with the gun store, and then you show up and you wait outside. Like they come.
What'd you buy?
I bought a Glock, 45.
Stepping up.
Yeah. So I checked with the gangbangers. They were like, yeah, this is the one you hold sideways. But anyway, you had to wait outside, 6 feet apart or whatever, and they brought you in one at a time, and then I was able to do it. I did the background check. By the way, the people who fight against the test and the background check, like, how, like, do you understand how, have you done it? Do you know how easy these questions are?
They're very easy.
There's questions on there like, are you a felon?
Yes.
Are you, is there currently a restraining order out against you? Like, well, who would check yes on that box?
Well, you have to. Because if they find out that you're lying, you'll never get a gun.
Right. Well, I'm pretty confident that I'll pass and I'll get it. And the guy was cool. This was one of my concerns was because I don't know what gun store to go to, right? So I said, man, don't let me walk into some place where there's a big Confederate flag on the wall.
In L.A.? In L.A.?
In L.A. County, yeah, you can find. Yeah, well, no. Listen, Joe, trust me on this. Trust me on this. They're out there. But anyway, no, the guy was
if
really
you're in farm
cool.
country off the 5.
Yeah,
maybe.
and the funny thing was, one of the big things was the size of my hands, right? So I have big hands, so he's kind of like, yeah, man, you got to literally try it on and see how it fits. And the Glock fit my hand really well. And then I was asking about shotguns, and he was like, telling me, because I've fired shotguns, I've done that skeet shoot and stuff, and he was talking to me about tactical shotguns. And so he said, yeah, he said, you probably want one of these because you don't really have to aim too well when you got one of these. You just blast in the direction. I was like, all right, that sounds good. So I'm probably going to get one of those too. But yeah, but it was cool. And I get it. Like it's funny because people have accused me of being anti-gun. And I'm like, no, I'm not anti-gun. I'm pro-common sense. But,
what were your thoughts on gun laws before this? Did you think that people don't need to have guns?
No, I never thought people don't need to have guns.
So why did they think you did?
Because I've talked about, like, we don't need 50-round clips. I had a joke. I said, listen, I got a 50-round clip for self-defense. I'm like, if 50 people want to kill you at the same time, maybe it's you. Perhaps there's some part of your personality you need to look at. I'll tell you one thing I've always got about guns. I'm a motorcycle guy. I'm a car guy. And I know some gun people, and from the mechanical, artistic point, like this is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get that. Like,
yeah.
There are guns that are beautiful, just from a mechanical standpoint. Like, you look like this is a beautiful thing. And if you want to shoot it and shoot targets and this and that, like, great. If you want to hunt like you hunt, I called you. You remember, I texted you a while. I said, Joe, if this shit goes down, I'm coming to your bunker because I know you know how to kill animals. Like, I got a friend who knows how to kill animals. I'm going to go hang out with him.
It would be way more difficult than that. I had this conversation earlier today. Someone was asking me, would you be okay? And I'm like, you probably would not be okay with no civilization because you'd break an ankle and you die. You get an infection and you die. And good luck finding animals all the time. And what if you run out of arrows? Or what if you run out of bullets? You can't make your own bullets? Like, well, it could get real weird real quick.
But all of that aside, but those are the people who I'm like, those are the ones we need to watch. The ones who, like, I got to have this whole
Yeah.
bunker full of ammo and this and
I
that
have
because
150,000 guns.
the government's coming to get me and all that. Like those are the ones.
Yeah.
So when I talk about gun laws and that's why I say common sense. There's a common sense level to it, that I'm okay with. But no, I'm not anti-gun.
But you can't. The thing about people is they think it's a slippery slope. So if you say, I am for the Second Amendment, but I don't think you should have 50-round clips, or I don't think you should have that, and they're like, well, who gets to decide? Who gets to decide?
Common sense. You know who should decide should be the majority.
Mm-hmm.
It should be people. But again, this is where we're all one side or the other, and common sense is in the middle. If we had a government, a Congress, whatever, that could debate and talk about and have input and say, hey, the hunters say that we need this, and now it all makes sense, then you come up with a reasonable gun thing. Like, for instance, I think that cars are a good example. Like, we regulated guns the way we regulate cars in the sense you have to have a license, and when you sell it, even privately, if I sell my car to you, I notify the government, like, hey, I just sold my car to Joe, VIN number, blah, blah, blah. He's now responsible for it. If the system worked, we'd have a system of common sense. Unfortunately, we just have one extreme or the other. The thing about no guns, it's like, what are you going to, there's already millions of guns out there. So that's impossible. Like, that's an unreasonable
It is,
thing
but
to say.
It's one of those
because-
conversations that doesn't have an answer. There's not a clean answer. So
No.
when people bring that up, they go, well, Australia did it. Like, okay, first of all, there's only 20 million people in the whole
Right.
fucking continent, and it's the size of the contiguous United States. So there's more people in California than there is in Australia.
Right.
So shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
not-
and they also did it over a period of time,
They did it pretty quickly.
and they did it they did it in a moment of outrage.
Exactly.
They did it in a moment of outrage, and unfortunately used us as an example.
Yeah. But you can still get guns over there for hunting, though. People
Yeah.
hunt with guns over there. It's
Well,
just
Canada,
not as easy.
people hunt in Canada, and Canada had a mass shooting
Recently.
not too long ago.
Yeah.
But so like you said, it's one of those without an answer.
That's the problem.
But we
Like if you definitively think that this is the way, and you don't see the other side of it, then you're going to always have this polarized argument.
Right.
Pro-gun,
and if people
anti-gun.
would lose that, if they lose the I have to win,
Right.
and just like, let's come up with a compromise that works.
But the gun people, like particularly like NRA people, they don't think you should give up any ground. Because if you give up any ground from where we are right now, it's just a slippery slope, and they're going to keep taking. And they do have a point with some people. Now, a lot of those people that used to think like that now are buying guns, which is hilarious. A buddy of mine's wife was, you're never having a gun, you're never having a gun. This shit went down, you need to get a gun.
Yeah.
Like he said, it was a 180 switch, and it happened immediately when everything was shutting down. You start thinking of people in their worst case possibility rather than, we live in a nice area, we're fine.
Yeah, and again, you're right. Either extreme is impossible. Neither one wants to give up an inch.
Yeah.
And you both have to give up an inch. Neither one wants to give an inch, but you both have to give an inch. And and again, this is what we were talking about earlier, where the federal government does need to be involved in a sense where you have like Chicago that has a huge gun problem, partly because you can just drive over to Indiana and buy anything you want and bring it to Chicago.
Is that what the problem is?
Yeah.
How close is Indiana to Chicago?
Gary, Indiana to Chicago, I think, is like 2-3 hour drive.
Oh,
and that's where guns come from. When I grew up in New York City, right? New York City has some of, if not the strictest gun laws in the country. I knew guys, you go down south, you go to Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, buy any gun you want, drive up and sell them in New York. Because remember, our borders, there's no border between states.
Right.
You drive.
I hope that stays the way it is. I know that's a terrible thing that people are bringing guns from Virginia, but I hope the border thing stays the same. If you want to drive across the country, you can just go.
Yeah, I think the border should stay the same, but I think there has to be some sort of federal oversight to this. So
what?
There, again, what you can buy, what's required to buy it, what's required. If you had to provide ID to show who you are and where you live, so now if you're in
To buy a gun, you mean?
Yeah.
You should have more than that. You should definitely do that too, though.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So now if you're in one of the more lax states like Virginia, and I'm just using these examples. I don't know specific laws, but a Virginia or Arizona or something like that, you can't just go there, live in California, live in New York, and go there and buy one. Like, you got to prove, like, yeah, I live in Arizona, so I can buy so I'm subject to Arizona's laws.
Yeah, how does that work? If you're a citizen of the United States and you drive to Arizona, can you just buy a gun like you live in Arizona?
From what I understand, and listen, I'm far from an expert, and I know there's experts listening.
We should probably Google this.
But the gun shows, I think that's where they said you have a lot of
fuckery in the gun shows.
Yeah, because the gun shows is just one guy, one person selling to another, and that's where it gets really vague.
Yeah, that's the
as
loophole.
to what the rules are.
People buy all kinds of illegal shit.
Right. So I think I think in a gun store you need to provide ID and stuff like that. But the gun shows, it gets really kind of a gray area.
Didn't Bruno didn't Sacha Baron Cohen, this Bruno character, go to a gun show?
Yeah,
I think super gay character. Yeah, guns are fun. The problem is people are morons. The problem is not that guns aren't fun. I like guns. I have friends who are really gun nuts. I have friends that have so many guns they don't know how many guns they have. They love guns, and they love them for the mechanical thing. It's their hobby. Like, some people are really into muscle cars. Some people are into motorcycles.
I'm absolutely cool with that, because most of the people, I knew one guy who he was one like I'd be worried about. He was one like, this guy's waiting for a reason.
I have a friend who's a gun nut. He got carjacked, and he shot a guy and killed him.
But most of the gun guys I knew, they collected them, like you said. It was like muscle cars or motorcycles or whatever. It was just their thing. Yeah. And they were good with it. And the other thing is the gun safety. These idiots, like, there's so many stories like, the gun was in the back seat and the kid shot the other kid. And it's like, come on. There has to be some kind of safety and liability issue.
What's morons?
Just
that's what it is. It's not you. You would never do that. I would never do that.
Right.
It's the problem is you're taking something with godlike powers and you give it to morons.
And there has to be that. You have to somehow.
You're too dumb for a gun,
regulate the moron. Yeah. Like
give them a simple test.
Man, we've talked to a few people, and no.
It shouldn't be just, are you a felon? It should be like a competency test.
Right.
You need a competency test to drive a car, because a car could be deadly.